Good afternoon, and thank you for connecting with us at the Pennsylvania Game Commission today. My name is Lori, and I will be managing today's session. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear us. So on the right of your screen, you should see a GoToWebinar panel. If you could raise your hand over there or jot me a note in the questions to let me know that the audio is working as expected, that would be awesome. Oh, good. I see some hands being raised and some people making notes. Thank you so much. All right, the best user experience is going to be achieved using the GoToWebinar app, and the link to that came in the confirmation emails you received from us. When we play recordings from the field, you may be prompted to use the device's audio, and you're going to want to accept and go ahead and do that. We have found that some phones, particularly landlines, don't support the audio recordings. So if you happen to get disconnected or you need to step out, no worries. The session is being recorded, and we will be sending a link to everyone that was registered, and the session recording will then also be uploaded to YouTube later this week. We're fortunate today to be joined by two talented staff members of the Pennsylvania Game Commission, wildlife education specialist Lauren Ferrari and waterfowl and dove program specialist Nate Huck. And they will be discussing with us today the Game Commission's annual duck banding efforts. We're shooting to keep the session within your lunch hour and expect it to last about 30 minutes with another 10 to 15 minutes for questions. You can send us questions by typing into that question tab on the right of your screen. So Nate, Lauren, thanks so much for joining us today. Is there anything you want to share with us before we get started?
Thanks, Laurie, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. As Laurie mentioned, my name is Lauren, and I am a wildlife education specialist with the Game Commission. This From the Field episode is actually our sixth episode from the field. So if you are interested in viewing our other series or videos within the series, you can check them out on the YouTube page. But the From the Field series aims to give you a feel for being in the field with Pennsylvania Game Commission wildlife professionals like Nate. And From the Field is brought to you by Wildlife on Wi-Fi, which is the Game Commission's virtual platform for remote learning and virtual lessons. So thanks again for joining, and I'll turn it over to Nate to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nate Huck. I'm the waterfowl and dove program specialist for the PGC. I've been with the agency for about 2 years, and I'm excited to have everybody on and present this from the field with you.
Wonderful. So we are going to get started then with the video. I'm going to go ahead and press play, and it'll take a couple seconds to get started, and then we will watch this amazing episode here from the field.
Welcome to another episode of From the Field. I am Lauren Ferrari, and I am with our waterfowl biologist, Nate Huck. Nate, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
Great. And what are we going to be showing the public today?
So today we are out here at Middle Creek WMA, and we are banding ducks. So duck banding is a really important tool that we use. We can estimate things like survival and harvest rates. And it's really important information that feeds into our models that helps us better manage birds. So the more bands we can get on birds, and the more accurately we can manage these birds.
Okay, so we have a few tools of the trade here that we're going to show you. So would you mind taking them through what we're using here today to get the work done?
Sure. So first and foremost, the most important things we have are our bands. So we have a couple of different sizes here just to give you kind of a little bit of perspective. These are a 7A and these are a 4A. So we put different size bands on different birds. We have our banding pliers and our openers. So we use the openers obviously to open them off of the string, and then the pliers to put them onto our birds. And then we have the important notebook to be able to record things. And then we have a catch crate. These catch crates we use to take birds from out of the traps, and we hold them in these catch crates until we're ready to band them.
Nate, how are we going to be catching the ducks today?
Yeah, so we use a variety of swim-in type traps. So basically, each of the traps has one or many funnels, and those funnels are the birds slowly find their way into the trap, looking for bait, which we use corn. And once they find their way in there, because the funnel has such a small opening, the birds have a difficult time finding their way out.
Would you like to we can show them those traps here today? We can go check them out right now, right?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
let's go do that.
So Nate, can you show us how this works? I know you've talked about the funnel, but show us a little bit more about how this trap actually works.
Sure. So as you can see, we have a bait board here that gives birds can see the corn, as well as gives them an opportunity to get up out of the water. But in addition to that, we have corn all over the bottom. So the birds work their way around the trap, and they work their way eventually into this funnel, and then they work their way into the funnel. And as I said, because it's so narrow, they have a difficult time finding their way out of it. And then we have this door on the top here, and that allows us to extract birds from out of the trap without having to move it or anything like that.
And how often are you checking the traps?
Yeah, so we check traps twice a day. Once in the morning, after a little bit, give the birds a little time to get into the traps, and then we check them again in the evening because we don't want them sitting in the traps overnight.
And why is that?
Well, there can be issues with predators, things like raccoons particularly, or mink, that'll see splashing birds in the trap overnight, and since they're nocturnal, they might find their way to an easy snack since the birds are already captured for them.
And when you're picking sites to trap ducks, what are you looking for? Like, what's the perfect duck trapping site?
Well, the perfect duck trapping site has ducks, first and foremost. But the second thing we're looking for a nice shallow water generally. You can see we're in like ankle deep water here, but we can go all the way up to like your calf height. And we're looking for a firmer bottom is ideal because slogging around in the mud, eventually you kind of lose the bottom if it's not very firm.
Okay. So you said about we're tracking harvest rates. With these bands, I'm guessing we can find more information about how old birds can be. Is there any other data that we can get from these birds by banding them?
Yeah, we learn a lot about bird ages. Like I said, survival. We can actually we ban birds twice a year, and by doing that, we ban them now in the spring, and we also ban them in the pre-season in August and September. And by doing that, we can actually learn about annual survival, so we can tell how birds survive throughout the cycle and not just through hunting season.
And will you ban anything you catch as far as duck species go?
Yeah, so specifically during the postseason, we are targeting mallards and black ducks. But we have other studies going on that might be looking at other species. So we banned every single bird we catch. That's a duck at least.
Okay. Well, we're going to get out of here and we'll come back a little later, check our traps, and hopefully we have some birds to show you.
Sounds great. It's like just like on these bigger ducks, it's just a little hard.
So Nate, do you catch non-targets sometimes when you're out here?
Yeah, on occasion we catch some non-target species, things like the snow goose in here, or on occasion we'll find a Canada goose that's hungry enough that'll squeak through these small funnels, or things like coots even sometimes. The band and how the wear is that this was banded very recently, so we banded it just this year, so we don't need to record anything on it. So we can just let them go.
We have a few ducks here in our box. We're going to take them back to our banding mobile and we'll see them there. So we have retrieved the ducks from the trap, and Nate, this is a holding pen that we have here, it looks like. And so what's next? I guess we're ready to band.
Yeah, we're ready to band. So we're gonna grab the birds out, and we'll age them really quick by looking at the wing and looking for characteristics on the wing. And then we'll give them a band which has a unique ID number, and then we'll let the birds go.
All right, sounds good. Let's see how it works. So I'm guessing you need to figure out what duck it is first before you put a band on it.
Yeah, sure. So this is a ringneck duck. And actually this is one of the fun ducks. A lot of hunters call them a lot of different things. The reason they're called a ringneck duck is because of this maroon coloring that you can see on the neck here. But a lot of people don't even notice that on the bird at a distance, or even in the hands. Sometimes they don't really show that very well. So a lot of people call them actually a ring-billed duck, and you can see why that might give them, why this ring on the bill might lead hunters to calling them that, or other people to call them that. So what we do is we pull them out, we check the wing really quickly, and we're looking for wear, and we're looking for other characteristics of the feather, such as feather shape. And this one's actually, so this one's a male. We can tell that because he's a really dark, he has this really dark head, that really bright white on the ring, white ring on the bill, and a female would be more brown in color. And then this is a second-year bird, and we can see that because of some of the wear and some of the other characteristics on the wing.
When you say second year, what does that mean?
Yeah, so second year meaning that this bird was hatched last year. So the previous year, so this is March of 2021, so this bird was probably hatched in June of 2020. If we have an after second year bird, that would be a bird that was hatched in 2019 or before.
Do the males have that yellow eye color? Do the females have that as well, or is that indicative of a male as well?
That yellow eye color is indicative of a male. The females actually have more of a brown colored eye.
Oh, okay. Now, ringnecks, are they diving ducks or are they puddle ducks?
Yeah, so ringnecks are diving ducks. And one of the key characteristics that we look at on diving ducks, they generally have a shorter wing to body ratio, which is kind of hard to see here. But another thing that we have that's really indicative of them is this webbed hind toe that you can see right there.
Okay. Interesting.
So we grab the bird, we get that band and the pliers,
And while Nate's doing that, I'm making sure that I'm writing down the data for the band. So as Nate mentioned, every band has a unique number. So we want to make sure we have that number correct so that we can identify that through the bird banding lab. And if I have this correct, it should be the last three digits are 780.
that's correct. So a second year male.
Okay.
And then we just let them go, and since it's a diving duck and they can't fly really great without a long takeoff, we just kind of let them go on the water.
Cool. All right, so on to the next one here.
Yeah.
Looks like we have...
We've got one more ringneck duck here. And yeah, so we have, you can tell this is a ringneck because of this dark black color. He's got this nice white ring on his bill. This is a male because of that black color and that bright eye color.
You can actually see the ring really, when you're up close, you can start to see that brownish color right there. Okay.
Yeah, so that's that ring that I was talking about. And then we'll check that wing really quick we can tell that this one is a second year as well.
So Nate, you're saying second year. How many birds you've seen in the hand for you to be able to tell second year or older or younger?
So I've handled a lot of birds in the field, but I've also one of the things that we do most years is we have what's called a wing bee, where we go and identify birds that were shot by hunters, And so we get an opportunity to handle, each person handles hundreds of wings. So we get that opportunity to kind of hone our skills and practice with people who have done this for a lot longer than I have. So, and we're just gonna apply the band really quick.
So if somebody were to find this band, Nate, whether they were a hunter or a bander that's also banding waterfowl, or maybe if somebody did encounter a bird just on a day-to-day basis, how do they go about reporting that?
Yeah, so any bands, they're all handled in the same database called the Bird Banding Lab, and you can report those to reportband.gov. And so any bands, we use all sorts of different bands, whether they be these metal bands. Some birds have neck collars, some birds have what we call tarsus bands, where they have a color band that has a code on them. If you see any of those things, yeah, you can report them all to reportband.gov. And actually, if you happen to find one of these bands, they even say reportband.gov right on there.
Cool. So he's all set.
Yeah, so this
All
is
right.
a second-year bird, second-year male, and yeah, we're going to let him go.
All right. So we have one duck left. It looks different, though. Looks
Yeah.
like it's a different type.
Yeah, so this is an American widgeon, and this is one of the puddle ducks. So there's an example. We've already banded this one, but you can see it doesn't have that webbed hind toe there that the ringneck duck did. So widgeon, kind of the key characteristics of them is this white ridge on their forehead, and then the green eye stripe, and this beautiful white wing patch. And they've got some really, really cool characteristics. They're a really pretty bird.
So this is, I'm guessing, based on the color and in the bird world that this is a male because he's very colorful.
Yep. Yeah, so yeah, and like most birds, yeah, the male is a lot prettier than the female. So this is, yeah, a really pretty bird, and yep.
Very interesting. And when you let them go, you can you do the same thing, put them on the water, or you can toss them in the air? How does that work?
No, for these birds, we can actually toss them in the air. They have the ability to take off a little better. So yeah, we can just go ahead and kind of give this one a little toss, and
Okay,
off he'll go.
perfect. All right, so we're back from our traps that were out here, and we have something different to show you. So, Nate, what are we going to be banding here now?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of black ducks, one of which we've caught before, and one that we're going to put a new band on. So I'll try to grab out the one we're putting a new band on.
So sometimes when we catch ducks from previous years, they show up again in our traps. They like the free meal, and so they come back. But you can actually tell that it's an older duck by the wear on the band. But Nate grabbed the new duck, so would you like me to get the band ready for you?
Sure. So this is a female American black duck. You can tell it's a female because of this dark mottled bill on her. And so on black ducks, again, we look for feather wear, and we look at some of the characteristics of the feathers, the tips of the feathers on the wing, to know whether or not it's an adult or a juvenile. So this is a second-year bird. Just quickly apply. And
These bands look a little bit larger than the other ones you were putting on the ringnecks. Is that the case?
yeah, so one of the things that we do on each species has kind of their own size. Some of the species share a size, but for ducks, we use 4 or 5 different size bands that we can use to put on to fit their legs better, since this is a considerably larger bird than the other birds we were at the last spot.
So can you tell age the same way with these as you do the ringnecks? Are you looking at the same types of feathers, or?
Well, so on these we actually look at some different feathers. We're looking out here on the wing, and we're looking for whether or not these are pointed or more rounded off or squared off. And since these are more pointed, that's how we can tell that that's a juvenile.
Cool. Time to let her go.
Yeah.
So we saw the female, so now we have another duck that, as I mentioned, has another band on it. That's an older band, and he looks a little bit different. So is this a male?
So this is a male. You can tell that bright kind of, it's yellow-green bill. So this is, like you mentioned, this is a bird that you banded a few years ago. We can see lots of rust and wear on the, or not rust, but just wear and other deposits on the band, and it's pretty worn. We know that this is an older bird, and yeah, we can tell it's a male, and we like to record that information because it helps us with some of our survival estimates.
Let's see. So 806. So this specific duck we actually caught previously, and we caught him on March 4th, and it is now March 17th. So over 2 weeks ago. So pretty unique.
Yeah.
So this is an old band, so you can see that the numbers have a little bit more of a tarnished look to them. So this bird was actually banded at a previous point in time. We already have the band number down, so we're able to let him go. So Nate, this trap style looks different than the other traps that we were just at. Can you explain to us how it works?
Sure. Generally speaking, all duck traps are kind of the same. They have a small funnel like this one here that the birds, as they're working their way along the side of the trap, they find the corn and they work their way into that funnel, and then they have a hard time finding their way out of that funnel. And then once all the birds are in this trap, we go to the front of the trap and kind of push the birds up this ramp and into this holding pen. And once they're in the holding pen, we can just reach inside and grab them out, and then we can band them.
Great. Thanks for explaining that to us. Thank you for joining us for another episode of From the Field. And Nate, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
We'll see you next time.
All right. That was great. I love the little section in there where everything was sped up in time and you guys were working so super fast. That was awesome. So
We work that fast in real life too.
I know you do. I'm sure you do. With all your great helpers there. So folks that are watching, you are welcome to jot us some questions in the question tab on the right there in your GoToWebinar panel. We do have a couple and I can get started with those. So our first question is about the age of the ducks. Do you know what the oldest duck is that you have banded?
I can speak to age on some things. So we don't really know when we're catching new birds if they are adults. We don't know, meaning they were hatched at least more than 2 years old. We don't know how old they really are. So they could be 2 years old at that point, or they could be 10 or 15 years old. We know from some of the longevity records for banding records that some ducks can be 25 or even 30 years old from when they were first banded to when they were captured, but we don't. Yeah, generally speaking, we either have two age classes. We either age them as hatch years or in the postseason as second years, meaning they were hatched that year, or they were hatched the year prior, meaning they were after hatch years.
Ah, so do you guys get, if a hunter reports harvests and then reports a band on a bird that you guys banded, do you get that report as well? So you would know like maybe what the oldest harvested bird or the longest banded harvested bird was?
Yeah, I haven't actually looked specifically at what our oldest harvested birds are in PA. I would guess most of them are probably in the over 20, more than likely. I know recently we had
Wow.
one, we had a Canada goose that was banded in 1999, in Pennsylvania that was recovered, shot by a hunter. So yeah, we do know that. I do get all those recoveries. They get emailed to me once a week. So
Wow. So the birds that are banded at Middle Creek, where do they end up? Like how far do they go?
Lauren, you want to go ahead and talk about
Sure.
that a little?
I was going to say that we were in the process of learning a little bit more about that. And Nate and some of my predecessors would know a little bit more in terms of all of the birds at Middle Creek. But I do know that we get, we're not just capturing our own recaptures, birds that come into our trap that we've captured before. So some of the birds that we see at Middle Creek are coming from Canada, New York, Vermont. We've had, I've caught one from Wisconsin before. That was a little rare, but I can't speak specifically to the recoveries from Middle Creek. I know, Nate, you look at that data a little bit more than I do, but I know that they are, a lot of the birds that we're capturing in the winter, especially the black ducks, are moving north. But we do also catch birds that their home is at Middle Creek year round. So specifically, in one instance, I had a young female mallard that we caught as a young bird in the summer. So she had just been hatched that past spring. I caught her the next year, actually with some ducklings that I presume were hers, and then caught her again in the winter that following that second capture. So I actually had encountered her 3 different times, and that story is pretty unique to not uncommon at Middle Creek. That happens a lot. But Nate, if you want to speak specifically about the black ducks, that would also be great.
Sure. So we actually started a pilot project as part of an Atlantic flyway wide marking of black ducks with transmitters. And so right now, some of the birds at Middle Creek are as far north as around Georgia Bay and Ontario. And actually, just this last night, a bird left Middle Creek and is sitting on the Susquehanna on the New York PA border. So these birds are kind of heading north. Generally speaking, the black ducks we mark in the winter breed in Ontario, as well as they breed in Ontario and Quebec. And some of the birds that we mark in the summer, like wood ducks and mallards, they may winter as far north as the Carolinas, or winter as far south as the Carolinas, I should say.
That's cool that you can watch them go. So we have several people asking about the opportunity to volunteer to help band ducks.
Yeah, so I'll grab that one, Nate, and I don't want to speak for the whole state. So at Middle Creek, we do have a few more opportunities. Obviously, the last year has looked a little bit different with volunteers, but for professional or young professionals, especially those interested in the wildlife field, we do have some opportunities to take them out. But really, when we can resume having events at Middle Creek, if they're timed appropriately, we do have some public demonstrations that people can also participate in. But if you are interested, like I said, right now it's kind of limited with everything, but you can just contact Middle Creek. But we do try to limit it. It's not just open to everybody. We try to make sure it's for a educational purpose through a school or through, like I said, if you're a wildlife professional seeking more experience.
That's great. So you mentioned that you band at Middle Creek. How do we band at other places in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, we have banding throughout the state. Pretty much every single region bands, and we have 6 regions in the state, so we have banding statewide. Some, in particular, we band a lot of birds in Northwest Pennsylvania, as well as Northeastern Pennsylvania. We have, yeah, we have banding pretty much statewide, especially as it pertains to Canada geese, but ducks as well.
And do you go back to those same locations at the same time each year?
Generally speaking, yeah, we try and band, like I had kind of mentioned in the video, we band ducks in August and September, and then as well as in the winter in January, February, March. And so we generally go back to those places each year as long as they're successful. And we are usually looking for more spots that have birds that we can mark them at. And Canada geese, we kind of rotate around the state, so we try not to go back to a spot more than once every 3 years because the birds get pretty wise to us coming after them.
Gotcha. And the geese that you're not catching them in a cage or a pen, right?
Yeah, correct. We actually we push them during their flightless period, during the molt. We push them, and we have a kind of do like a roundup similar to how you would do cattle. We push them into and then create a pen around them.
That's great. And I'm sorry, did you say about how many ducks we banned in Pennsylvania every year?
Ducks, we probably banned between 2,000 and 4,000, depending on the year.
That's a lot of ducks. Okay, let's see. I have another question here about, does the Game Commission do any studies on the diet of ducks, particularly puddle ducks?
So that I'm aware, we haven't done any recently. Actually, my master's research was on northern pintail diets in Texas. But generally speaking, most of our mallards and black ducks are eating grains, although they're kind of a generalist. They'll eat grains, they'll find a way to eat invertebrates, or they'll eat plant matter. Some of our like wood ducks and maybe green-winged teal are a little more focused on like seedy things. Wood ducks really like acorns. And then, some of our other puddle ducks like widgeon are really, really focused on aquatic vegetation. So that's kind of varied depending on which species you're talking about.
And just to
Very
follow
good.
up on that too, Laurie, at Middle Creek specifically, we put a very heavy emphasis on managing for waterfowl. So our habitat here is very geared towards that food availability that Nate was just talking about, specifically for the puddle ducks, hopefully for all waterfowl, but it also benefits a lot of other species too, like shorebirds and different species that are going to be using those mud flats. But we do manage specifically for that food availability here at Middle Creek.
Lots of happy ducks, I'm sure. All right, I don't see any other questions at the moment. So this is your last call for questions if you're joining us today. And then we are going to wrap it up. So the session has been recorded. You should all receive an email with a link to the recording within the next couple days. The recording will also be uploaded to the Game Commission's YouTube channel later this week. I'd like to thank Lauren and Nate for sharing their experience and time with us today. We'd also like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us this afternoon, and hope you'll visit us again to learn more about Pennsylvania wildlife in upcoming webinars and from the field sessions. Let us know what subjects you're interested in. And until then, we hope you're able to get outside and enjoy some of Pennsylvania's great outdoors. Thanks so much, folks. We'll catch you later.
Thanks, Laurie.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
everybody.
Take care.